at number 30, John Tavares. Longtime Islander captain there, fan favorite. He leaves. He goes to his hometown team of Toronto. Wears the C there, and he kind of lived up to the billing.
He absolutely has, and I can't emphasize this enough. Just in all sports, I mean, the big fish, the big free agent signings in big markets, huge, generally doesn't work. Or there's always a letdown. There's always you're wanting more as a fan and as a team. That's not the case with him. Another one that we've spoken a lot about is Artemi Panarin. We'll get to them another time. But John Tavares has been money since he's gotten there. He's gotten paid a lot of money, but he's also been well over. He's over a point a game type player for the Toronto Maple Leafs and has been for most of his career. And his numbers, as far as points per game, are the best they've been since he has become a Toronto Maple Leaf. So I love what he's done. He's lived up to the bill.
Yeah, he's gone into Toronto and played very well. He's got a good supporting cast there. He gets to play with some really good players, especially up front with the forwards they have there. So that's helpful. First year in Toronto, 47 goals. Last year, the numbers ticked back a little bit, but still, that was kind of an odd year for Toronto, right? They changed coaches, they kind of changed systems, but John Tavares still is a force from an offensive standpoint. My only thing I would say is he is 30 years of age now. It seems like only yesterday he was the first overall pick of the Islanders. That was back in 2009, so we'll have to keep an eye on that production as he moves forward in his career, but still a talented offensive player, and certainly deserving to be on the list. I'm not so sure. I might have had him a tick the other way, maybe, into the 30s more, but still a high-end guy to have.
And a model of consistency. We saw that graphic up there, 25-plus goals for 6 consecutive years.
I think that's the thing with this guy, that sometimes he's underappreciated because we don't talk about him as far as he doesn't make highlight reel dynamic plays on a nightly basis. He's not going to get 100 points.
He doesn't fly up and down the ice.
But yes, and he doesn't have anything overly, that's going to catch your eye. But he's consistent.
He's good.
And he's never bad the other way. We never talk about John Tavares struggling. I don't remember in his career where we're like, wow, this guy hasn't found his game. I mean, he's just the model of consistency, and sometimes that doesn't get attention. Sometimes not getting attention is a very good thing in this league.
Number 29, Sebastian Aho, consistently getting better each. 24, 29, 30, 38 goal totals the last 4 years. Have we seen the ceiling yet for Sebastian Aho?
I don't think so. I think he's going to be getting better and better. I mean, remember, he's just 23 years of age. A terrific pick by the Carolina Hurricanes in the second round back in 2015, 35th overall. And in the playoffs this year, he was a force for the Hurricanes. I mean, 12 points in the 8 games. He was a +6. He had the 3 goals, but he was making plays. He was used in all situations by Coach Rod Brindamore. Very skilled player, can shoot the puck, finds players on the ice. You see there the goals per game by season, and it's going in the right direction. I think it's going to continue to go in that direction. And let's face it, this is such a talented guy that go all the way back to the summer of 2019. Oh, I wish we could. But, you go back to then, the Montreal Canadiens tendered that offer sheet, and it ended up being a great thing for the Hurricanes because they just matched the offer sheet. They moved forward.
It's a great deal.
But Sebastian Aho, really high-end, talented player. Great fit with Carolina.
I find when players break out in the league, whether it's, say, you score 30 goals, right? The first year you can score 30. I'm not trying to take anything away from that kind of feat. I mean, you're a world-class player. But there's something to be said when the other team starts game planning for you, and then you still put those numbers up. So if they're game planning for somebody else and Sebastian Aho has a breakout year, that's all good and dandy. But when they're game planning for him and he still does it and gets better, like you said, every year, J-Mo, that's where this kid's a really special player. And that's why I don't think we have seen the ceiling. He's really grabbed a hold of that and run with it.
And how about the complementing pieces on that top line there? You have the youngster Svechnikov and then TaiwanHockey. It just seems like these three, once Rob Brindamore kind of put them together, it meshed perfectly.
Yeah, and Svechnikov, he's another guy that's just going to continue to get better and better. We could be talking about him on this list at some point in the near future. So they've got a lot of talented young players in Carolina, and Aho was kind of the leader of that offensive group right now.
I love that group and that board we just showed there. And TaiwanHockey, I'm just going to throw it in there. I mean, how much does Chicago miss a guy like that?
Yeah.
And, listen, these are salary cap casualties. That's what they had to do. Then at that time, it wasn't a huge, blatant miss by them. But now he's gone there and he's thrived. But a lot of it's around this guy. And the position that he plays can cultivate offense, and that line's been really good for doing that for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Boy, did he arrive to Vegas with some fanfare. We remember
Yes,
the airport arrival,
Yeah.
the dancers, the
Yes.
Gila Monster, and so far it's worked out perfectly out there for the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, you know, you think about Mark Stone. He was a 6th-round pick by the Ottawa Senators in 2010, 178th overall. And the reason was people didn't think he was going to be able to skate well enough at the NHL level. And he has been able to skate well enough to be a real factor and to be on our list. So that's the positive for Mark Stone, just 28 years of age. He had the 21 goals in 65 games last year. And in 20 playoff games, he also had 17 points. So he's one of these guys that can help you in a lot of different areas. He's a really good two-way player. I think he's a leader in that room as well, which is a valuable piece of the puzzle. He does things that you would normally expect as like a center is kind of given more credit for two-way play in a 200-foot game. Mark Stone has that. You know, I do still question, you know, he's proven that he skates well enough to play in this league. There's no question about that. But I think sometimes Mark Stone gets maybe more credit than he should get, because he's a very good player. I don't know if he's an elite player. I just think he's a very good player that helps you win. And for that reason, he should be on the list. But again, he seems to get a lot of credit for little things that other guys maybe don't get as much credit for.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think he kind of garners maybe more attention than other guys do that do similar things?
You know what? I think a lot of it's due to the quantity of goals that he's capable and showing he's capable of scoring. And usually guys that are in that echelon don't lock it down defensively in a lot of areas. They need to kind of have some cheat, and cheat's a positive thing for offensive players. Like, I'm not saying that as a negative. You have to cheat for offense if that's what you're signed up for on your team to provide. He doesn't have to cheat to get the offense. Is he ever going to get 100 points? No, I don't believe so. But he is a winger that was a Selke finalist.
Exactly.
That's enough right there. But when you look at this lineup, here's my concern. That guy is their best defensive forward, but he's a winger. And there's not a centerman on that roster right there unless, you know, unless you have some Cody Glass really elevates his game. Is he going to, I guess my point is Mark Stone's offense still going to be there? Because there's a lack of centerman quality there for top-line center or second-line center, and that's a concern.
Yeah, is William Karlsson going to play the level he did a couple of years back? Is Cody Glass going to, who was a high draft pick and is a big-time prospect in their organization, is he ready to step up now? So I think it's fair to be concerned about that. And I think you really did nail it on Mark Stone in that, what I was trying to say was that because he's a scorer, he doesn't really cheat as much. And so maybe people pick up on that. And, you know, listen, I'm not here to knock Mark Stone at all. He's a terrific player. I just think sometimes that he's just a really good, solid player that helps you win. There's nothing wrong with that. You love those guys in your room. But there's the elite players that really drive a team, and then there's just the good players that help you win. I think he fits more into the latter class for me.
Yeah, Mark Stone can certainly score, putting up 20 or more goals in 6 consecutive seasons. Mark Stone at number 28. The other Mark at number 27, Mark Scheifele. And you talk about a guy who, he's been a model of consistency as well, a point-per-game guy in Winnipeg the last 4 years. And with how many guys they do have offensively, do you think he maybe flies under the radar, at least nationally?
He has for a long time, I think. I mean, you're talking this guy. I'm very bullish on Mark Scheifele. If you're asking me for centerman today to go into a playoff series, I'm not sitting down putting pen and paper right now, but I mean, there might be 3 or 4 in the league that I'd pick over him. I mean, that's how high I think of this guy, because he's big, and he's got that right-hand shot, and he's so good offensively. He distributes the puck. He can score. He's got a little mean streak to him, too. I love him as a player. This guy is the real deal, and he doesn't, you're right, J-Mo, he doesn't get the attention usually as much as he probably should.
Well, he plays with some really high-end players. You see some on that list there when you think about a Patrick Laine, who garnered a lot of attention coming to league. Blake Wheeler's been there a while. Kyle Connor's an emerging player. They have Connor Hellebuck in goal. So he flies maybe a little bit under the radar because it's really an ensemble cast there in Winnipeg. But you saw his impact when he was injured. Remember in the return to play, they were locked up against the Calgary Flames in that first round, so to speak, the shorter first round. and he got hurt right off the bat in Game 1, and the Winnipeg Jets were just not the same without him. So he is a really key cog for that group. He is a center. He drives winning, and he's had the number 73 points last season, and then you see 2 seasons ago, 84 points. And in his career, he's a plus 83. I know plus minus is not the be-all, end-all. It's certainly a stat that, with all the advanced stats, maybe not as valuable anymore, but still, I always weight, you give it some weight. A plus 83 in your career is pretty darn good.
Yeah, and then you look at shooting percentage, over 18%, up there with the likes of TJ Oshie. Yeah. You put all these subtle little categories together, and that
terrific
makes
player.
One heck of a player, and that's why he's ranked in the middle of the pack for our top 50. Alex Pietrangelo, 850 career games, regular season playoffs in St. Louis. Not the case anymore. The captain going west to Vegas.
I mean, that was the biggest guy in the market, right? And Vegas made a lot of moves and are still in the process of making those moves to fit him in here. But this is a guy, when you can add a guy, most of the time, a #1 defenseman or top pair defenseman, guess what? They don't hit the market. So when they do, teams get extra hungry for them. And the biggest thing with 27 for me, the captain in St. Louis Blues, Stanley Cup champion, is that he is consistent. He eats a lot of minutes. He can add to your power play. He's very solid defensively. He does everything good. Nothing's going to blow you out of the water, but he's solid, and he eats up those minutes, which are so important. And it shows how important he is. Look what Vegas has done on their roster to fit him in.
And Vegas was heavy on left shot defensemen, so adding Alex Pietrangelo to the mix, I think, really helps him, gives him a little bit more balance. But you're right, Rupper. I mean, he does everything well. You can play him in all situations. You can feed him those minutes. He's hard to play against. Long reach, as I say, right shot guy. That's one of the big reasons why when the Blues went on that cup run in 2019, I mean, him and Parayko on the right side of that defense for the St. Louis Blues, I mean, you just couldn't get anything done if you're a left winger on the left side of the ice. They're just really hard to play against, and I think going into Vegas, now I'll be curious. He's 30 years of age. He's going to be starting a long contract in a new place. He was the captain in St. Louis. Who knows how things are going to unfold in that room in Vegas as guys are coming in and out of there. But one thing we know for sure, you said it, he's consistent. You know what you're going to get from him, 25, 26 minutes a night, just really good, hard to play against hockey from Alex Pietrangelo.
I think that's just the point, Each, is that you know as a coach what he might not pull every fan out of their seat, but when he throws him over the boards, he knows exactly what he's going to get out of his player in Petro. And that's what has made him so valuable. And he does it very consistently and has done it for a while.
Jonathan Huberdeau down in Sunrise for the Florida Panthers, each at number 25. Alexander Barkov gets a lot of the spotlight down there. How much credit does this guy deserve?
Well, he deserves a lot of credit. I mean, he's a very, very talented player. He won the Rookie of the Year in 2013. He was a high draft pick. And, think about it. Just 2 seasons ago, he had 92 points, 82 games, 30 goals, 62 assists. He's a playmaking winger, but he's someone that can really help you in so many different ways offensively. My concern when you have a guy like Huberdeau this high on the list is that the Florida Panthers haven't been a very good team over the last several years. And I just wonder, should he be at 25? He's put up great numbers, but, sometimes you get numbers in games where you're either, you're losing, it's late in the game, and you end up putting up points in those situations. I'm not saying Jonathan Huberdeau is a terrific, terrific player. There's no question about it. I just don't know, for me, if I'd have him that high on the list because the Florida Panthers as a team have struggled. It's not all on his back,
right,
but he's one of the leaders there that has to help drive winning. And I think it's the numbers are right there. The Florida Panthers haven't gotten it done as a team. So for me, I think he's a terrific player. I just wouldn't have him as high on the list as we have him on this list this year.
Yeah, I mean that's what's great about these. We can argue about them, and I like where he's at on this list. I think that having those 92 points, you stated, that's a big feat.
It's a huge year.
Yes, and what he did in the strange season of 1920, he
78 points.
Yeah, I mean, he's an offensive player.
He's still on pace to be at that 90-plus point
no
guy.
Question.
So I do like it. You made a great point. what has the team done? You know, and that does fall on the leader's shoulders at times, but this guy has put the points up. It might fall on some of the other guys down in South Florida for me, but Jonathan Huberdeau, I don't think we've seen the ceiling on him yet. I wouldn't be surprised that at some point, if that team turns it around and it becomes more of a winning team, he might break that century mark of 100
He could.
points.
I mean, listen, again, really skilled player. I mean, we come on these shows and fans are out there watching and they're like, well, EJ's, you know, what's he saying about Jonathan Huberdeau?
Panther fans have their torches lit for you, right?
No, that's all right.
Your house.
He is don't mistake what I'm saying. He is a really high-end skilled player. There's no question about that. But if I was putting a list together, I would factor in team success somewhere along the line. Now, one guy can't carry a whole group. But the Florida Panthers have a number of good players down there, and they haven't been able to kind of get out of their own way in the last several seasons. So, for me, that does weigh in a little bit. I think he's a terrific player. But do you sacrifice some of those numbers to help your team win? That's the thing I wonder, and we'll see what the Florida Panthers do when we get going again in 2021.
Let's start with the winger out in Colorado, Mikko Rantanen. Playoff-wise, we didn't know what to expect with the bubble. This guy exceeded expectations.
Yeah, he did. He was terrific. I mean, he is the only problem with Mikko Rantanen is just keeping him healthy. He had some injury issues in the 2019-20 season, but he was able to come back during the postseason. In the 15 playoff games they played, 21 points, 7 goals, 14 assists.
That good?
Plus 11. That's pretty darn good, right? And think about this. In his last 3 seasons, 197 games played, 79 goals, 212 points, more than a point a game player. And there you see in the last 3 seasons where he ranks amongst those point-per-game guys. And there's some really high-end players on that list. Just hard to deal with. Fortunate to play with great players in Colorado. Has great chemistry with Nate McKinnon, also with Gabriel Landeskog. When those 3 horses are together, I mean, really tough to deal with. If you're a defenseman, good luck handling this guy coming down the wing, because not only is he big and strong, he's really smart too, and obviously he's got some great guys to work with.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head, Each. Health is the biggest concern with this guy, because if he is healthy and has a stretch, if you give me a couple healthy seasons of Mikko Rantanen, he could crack top 10 on this list. And, you know, I mean, obviously his teammate, I have a feeling it's going to be fairly high on this list. A lot of people might have him at the top of the list. But nonetheless, that just shows the type of firepower in Colorado, because this guy's that good.
Let's talk about Barkov right now. This guy's finished top 6 in the Selke 3 times in his career. He can put the puck in the net. He flashes offensively, but he's just as good in his own end, isn't he?
Yeah, and he is. And I think having those Selke nods, or at least in the conversation, shows the Anze Kopitar type player that he is. I think, though, the other thing that he seems to lead the league in is
stick length.
The play. That's it. The player saying he's the most underrated player. Okay, and this is my only thing for the big 1-6. And I love his game. I love him as a player. He's got to find that next level, though, because you can't be. He's not underrated anymore. And now I think that he's getting to that point. If they're going to have success in South Florida, Sasha Barkov's got to crank that up to another level. And I feel like he has had a tough time doing that in the last couple seasons. And with that being said, look where he's at on our list. So it speaks to what he is as a player and what he can be with that size, that reach. Just a last little tidbit. This was probably back, it was one of my last years playing, or say it was 2014. Patrick Elias told me the best player in the league is Barkov.
Wow.
That was that long ago. So when a guy like that, I think is a future Hall of Famer, says that, projects that, he has potential to be a top-end player.
Yeah, well, there's no question about it. He's got the physical tools. I mean, he's a monster of a guy. You pointed out he uses that long stick, and he uses it to his advantage in the offensive zone and the defensive zone as well. I mean, 2 years ago, we talked about Huberdeau had the 92 points. Hello, Barkov had 96 in that season. And, you know, I would say much the same. As his teammate Huberdeau. Is like Barkov is a really high-end player. I love this guy. I just think if you're building a team and you could start with him as your #1 center because he could do so many things to help you win, boy, you got a great place to start. That's why I go back to what drives winning. And in Florida, you have a player like Barkov, you have a player like Huberdeau. We have them ranked 23 and 25 respectively. Clearly, you need 20 guys on a team to pull that rope and make it all work for you, and we could go through all the different things that have gone on in Florida. But I do wonder why that team isn't better when they have players that we think are that good. And so that makes me go back and, again, think about how things have unfolded down there over the last several years. But as a player, Barkov be one of those guys. I almost feel like I'd love to see him have a change of scenery and go somewhere else where maybe that culture of success would help him thrive to be even a better player.
How about the acquisition of a guy like Patrick Hornquist, who has that element of success, that level of grittiness, nastiness, and has played with superstars like Sidney Crosby?
Yeah, I think Patrick Hornquist will help on the power play, but I don't think that's the problem for this team. I think there's some other areas. Patrick Hornquist's mindset helps this team. Yeah. The thing with Barkov, he leaves you wanting more. And I'm going to say that I mean that in a respectful way, because he could do things that other human beings playing the game of hockey cannot do. And that makes you thinking, oh my gosh, that guy should dominate 3 points every night. So he needs to be better, take that next step. If he does, this team's a playoff team.
Yeah, it's funny when you're that good a player, the bar is set so high for you, right? And you know, listen, I think he's deserving of that number on our list. But I would like to see, I'd like to see that team have more success. I think they have the players there to do it. Clearly, when they have two high-end guys like Barkov and Huberdeau that are top 30 players, top 25 players on our list.
Mika Zibanejad coming in at number 22. Look, all the attention, all the hype. You want this one. This one. Okay. All the hype was on Artemi Panarin his first year in New York. Deservedly so, but Mika Zibanejad had a heck of a season.
When this trade went down for Mika out of Ottawa, Derek Brassard was being traded to Ottawa. Right now, everybody says, oh, what a lopsided trade. At that time, that was not a lopsided trade. Big Game Brass, that was a good trade for both sides. So you got to give a ton of credit to the New York Rangers for projecting this player, because they knew that he had the potential to become a #1 center, which they were in dire need for the last number of years. Not number of years, for a very long time. New York Rangers needed a #1. They found their guy. Mika had an unbelievable year this year. I'll kick it over to you in a second, Each, but this guy he was in the conversation for the Hart. Yeah. He should be in the conversation for Selkies. He was in the conversation, or he was in the running, I should say, for the Rocket this year for goals. I mean, he's a complete package, Mika.
Yeah, he had a great season. And a couple of things. I can remember early in the year covering the Rangers, being at a Ranger game, and he was dealing with a concussion issue. So let's remember, he only played this season in 57 regular season games. So those 41 goals he scored, we saw the board there. He has the most goals per game in the league this year, and that includes Ovechkin. Remember that game? He had the 5 goals in that 6-5 overtime win against the Washington Capitals back in March earlier this season. Hard to believe something good happened in 2020, the way things have gone, but that was a big night for Zibanejad, and you can see before and after the All-Star game, he really turned it on in the second half. I'll go back, Mike, to what you were saying about that trade, which took place in June of 2016. And both those guys, Brassard and Zibanejad, were 6th overall picks in their draft year. Obviously, Brassard was an older player. Ottawa was trying to kind of moving in a different direction. And it just goes, it's a good reminder for fans, and I guess for really everybody in life, is that the Ottawa Senators, they drafted this guy high. They just kind of fell out of love with him over time. They went out and got Brassard, who they felt could help them in the immediate.
They were 1 game away from the Stanley Cup Finals.
And they were. That's correct. They lost in double overtime to the Pittsburgh Penguins in double OT. But they gave up on a player who has become now, we have him ranked 22nd in the league. And so sometimes you don't want to give up on that guy too soon. I thought at the time it was a really good deal for the Rangers, just from the standpoint of they were looking to rebuild and get younger, and they got a lot younger, and they added a player that really has turned out for them. So I'm happy for Zibanejad, and I'm happy that he was healthy, because I said when I saw him, and this was probably in October, November of 2019 in that Ranger locker room, the future was a little uncertain. He had got, I think it was a reverse hit from Patrice Bergeron, and he was dealing with a concussion issue at the time. But he was able to kind of get himself back on track, get healthy, and, boy, he took off this season. He really had a breakout year.
41 goals this season, 23 of those coming in the final 22 games. So when the league and the world hit pause back in March, this guy was the hottest guy, hottest goal scorer in the National Hockey League. You want to lead off Mitch Marner because Mitch Marner has done something historic for an original six team, putting up 40 or more assists in his first 4 seasons in the league. This is hundreds of years of history. That doesn't often happen. How good is this guy?
He's great, and I would say probably up to the last 2 seasons. Prior to that, when Toronto Maple Leafs have had their struggles, Mitch Marner, I've always said he's been their best player. He's been their best player. And when there was that time contractually, if they were going to lose him, I'm like, that's the guy you cannot lose. He generates so much offense. He does so many things. You know what I like about him too, though, Each? He kills penalty. He blocks shots. Yeah. So he's not one-dimensional. He's willing. I mean, he's got a really small frame, but you can't hit him out there. He generates so much, distributes the puck. He's unbelievable on the power play, and he's willing to block shots. I think he's a very unique player.
He drives offense from the wing, which is a little unusual. I would say more often than not, you look at a player like Marner, you would think they'd be a centerman, but he drives offense from the wing. He's a tremendous playmaker. Reminds me a little bit of Patrick Kane in that, as a guy who can do that from the half wall. He played very well with John Tavares a couple of years back. That was John's first year in Toronto. They had great years. Again, he's another guy, 2018, 2019, a platform season for him, 94 points in 82 games, plus 22. So he was a great player 2 seasons ago. Last year, again, when we talked earlier about the Toronto Maple Leafs, right, it was a little bit of an odd year because they had a coaching change. They had some struggles. They seemed to find their way in the second half, and then they had a tough first-round series in the postseason in the return to play against the Columbus Blue Jackets. They ended up on the short side of that, but really high-end player. The thing with Marner is he's being paid an awful lot of money now, just like his young forwards that they have there in Toronto. So the pressure will continue to mount. It's a big market, Rupper. You've played in some big markets, but there's nothing like really playing in Toronto. It's seemingly for an Ontario kid as well. So it'll be interesting to watch Marner as things continue to unfold in Toronto, as they try to track down that first Stanley Cup since 1967. But there's something that can't be denied. He has got a lot of offensive skill, fun to watch.
If with that loaded roster, he's the one player, if you plucked him out of that, the team would be hurt the most. I mean, because you're right, he drives offense. Yeah. You know, he sets up plays. He runs that power play, or runs through him. You don't notice those things a lot of times because you have John Tavares, you have Austin Matthews, and Mitch Marner, man, he's been awesome. He's been worth every penny, I think.
Yeah, I think the challenge again for the Leafs will be in a cap world, especially in the world we live in now where it's a flat cap, is trying to put the other pieces in place. You know, on this show today, we've talked a lot about players and then players in situations where the team is either doing well or not doing well. And I think all the guys we've talked about on this show today are all uniquely talented players and all deserving to be on a top 50 list for what they can do. But this is a team sport. You lived it, Rupper. You know what it's all about. And you need all those little different pieces to pull together. In the case of Mitch Marner, it's going to be up to management there in Toronto to figure out those other pieces. They've changed their approach. They're trying to be a little harder to play against. But it's nice to have elite guys like Mitch Marner and John Tavares, both Leafs on this list, one at 30 and one at 21.